I wanted to use this opportunity just to share some comments. I'm well aware that there's an active investigation. However, there is a lot of banter, I would say, in social media and also mainstream media.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we'd like to offer some comments. And as you and I know, we won't trespass on the investigators' grounds, but certainly we just wanted to share some comments.
Yes. So just before you share those comments, am I correct that Private Company 3, as stated by the Auditor General, is in fact Wilman Sales Company Limited?
That is correct.
And you imported a number of items into the country, all of these cups and crockery?
They were imported further to a bidding process that we were successful in.
Yes.
With the University Hospital, and further to a purchase order being issued. A UHWI designated importer imported them after we identified the goods from a supplier in China.
Right. Before you had this purchase order, did Wilman Sales Company Limited, have you had any previous relationship with UHWI before this particular purchase order?
They have had, yes, that is correct.
Right. And the purchase order, you say there was a bid, the Auditor General says there were 2 bids that were submitted to UHWI, but you didn't know about the second bid, did you?
No, we were not aware of that. It was a competitive process.
Yes.
And we submitted a bid, and we were advised subsequently that we were successful.
And is it UHWI or is it the Tony Thwaites, i.e. the private wing of UHWI with whom your client had the purchase order?
Well, my instructions are UHWI. I note that the Auditor General's report makes reference to the wing,
yes,
but my instructions are UHWI.
Right. And these particular items that you source based on the purchase order, these cups and dishes, this is the sort of business that Wilman Sales does?
It is. Wilman Sales is registered under the new designation of the PPC, I think that's the name of it.
Yes.
To supply goods and services. So, yes.
Right. Okay. So tell me now, you had this purchase order, and then when you just explain to me how it is that it happened based on your client's instructions with the importation of these.
Yes, so having been successful through this bidding process and the subsequent administrative processes followed to include the purchase order, the goods were then paid for by my client. The goods were then imported into Jamaica. Now, I pause here to say UA, from my instructions, has a strict rule that once goods are being imported on their behalf, a designated broker had to be used, and we followed those guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
That person brought the goods in. When the goods were landed, customs did their assessment, and subsequent to the assessment, the goods were then taken to UHWI stores, where a manual checkoff was done by Wilman Sales and a representative from University of West Indies. At no time were the goods in the possession of Wilman Sales. They left the port, the wharf, went to UA. We did not retain possession of any goods. And I just trespass on your question a little bit to say that we find it a little unfortunate where it is being said that we then, in my words, sold back the goods to UA. The goods never belonged to us. The goods were from a bid that we were successful. They were never our goods.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little unfortunate to say that they were being purchased or sold for 6.9 million.
Yes, in fact, I have been using that buyback term, but I had the correction from Mr. Hosin to say there was no buyback really. But in this case, as you're saying, you had a purchase order, so you actually wanted all of these 1,000 cups or these 500 plates and so forth, and they were actually delivered to the stores of UHWI once they were stripped at the wharf.
Correct, and so we're under contract. So
yeah,
it's unfortunate to say that the UHWI purchased them from us. We were under contract to supply goods, and we were just doing that.
So the tax exempt status now, was that used in this particular importation?
It was used, and certainly one would understand, Emily, goods are being brought in for someone. The goods are yours, so you're using your tax exempt status to bring in your goods. If I were to bring them in my private capacity, I would then have to mark them up, and that would cost you more. So the exemptions were used, but importantly, I pause again why I think it's unfortunate characterization in the report to say that my clients benefited because the goods left the wharf, they went to UAE and saved for a value of $260 and 78 cents. There were some overage goods that UAE refused to accept because they were not included in the purchase order.
Yeah.
So I think it's unfortunate to say that we benefited because at no time is there any benefit to Wilman Sales.
So when I've seen an assessment notice and the Auditor General speaks to the consignee being Wilman Sales Company Limited at 2 King Street. What does the word consignee mean in the context of this notice? I would say the person who is responsible in respect of the shipment to handle all issues when the shipment is being brought in. They are the persons responsible. Right. So where does UHWI's name appear on this assessment notice, if at all?
Yes. The name does not appear there, but Emily, you can call an apple a pear. It doesn't become a pear. Mm-hmm. The fact is, what we have certainly is a train of documents which speak to from the moment of the purchase order being issued and even before then, yes, that the goods were specifically for UHWI. At no time was it for Wilman Sales.
Right. There's a particular document that they call the Customs Declaration, which is the C-84. Have you had sight of that particular document?
I have.
Yes.
I have, but I
perhaps not in front of you.
Yes, and I also would want us to, as we I think would agree, not to trespass on the work that the investigators wish to do to try the case on the radio.
Right. I ask for it because it is a document that the Auditor General mentions in her report, which she says specifies that UHWI private wing and the private company, they are the importers. Yeah, and
yes,
the name of the CEO is reflected on that, and I believe the CEO has said that what is on there is true, correct, and complete in relation to the permission to allow Wilman Sales to import. Yeah.
Right.
So
right,
the tax exemption status, you say, having been used, the Contractor General makes mention of 2 figures.
I'm sorry, the Auditor General.
Sorry, the Auditor General, yes. Speaks of, thank you, 615,784, as well as duty of 622,614. Do you know what is the actual tax exemption that UHWI benefited from on these transactions?
I am not able to say that even the Auditor General in their report say that they don't know either. And that is one of the things that they say further investigation warrants. I can't speak to benefit. The concern, respectfully, is that it's being suggested that Wilman benefited, and that is a concern that I wish importantly to address, because importantly, even the Auditor General's report says that the goods are at UAE stores.
Mm-hmm.
So so you're saying that my client benefited, but the very goods that you say were subject to the shipment are in the stores at UAE.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's an unfortunate characterization. Having said all of that, And I find it, the comments I wish to make, which I find inconsistent, is on the one hand to say that there is a benefit, but on the other hand, you are conceding and acknowledging in the report that in fact there was a process, a bidding process, that they were successful. So they're admitting on the one hand that they participated in a process, but on the other hand, they're trying to say that there is a benefit or there is a private, they're acting in their private capacity. So I think it's a little unfortunate in terms of what I would respectfully say are inconsistencies.
Do you have any instructions to take it beyond what you just told me?
The instructions allow me to say that we have engaged the Revenue Protection Division and MOCA with regards to making ourselves available. We hope that through this avenue, we will seek to arrive at some redress, and I am being very careful in walking between the raindrops to say that seeing the outcome of that process, we will then advise on the next steps.
So you haven't been asked so far by any entity, customs or otherwise, to pay any funds related to this particular purchase order as a result of depriving the revenue of any money at all?
Okay. We have not been asked since the report came out in December. No, we have not. However, we did pay customs duties based on the assessment that you mentioned, but nothing has happened since December. And I think importantly, Emily, and another unfortunate note is that to date, we have not even been invited to tender an opinion when this investigation was being done. And I give credit to the Integrity Commission that in 2022, they had asked questions and my client responded in September 2022 with answers. But that is also another matter for another place in terms of that discussion. But we're only too happy to assist in investigation, but we just wish to set the record straight that the characterizations are unfortunate with respect.
You say customs duties were paid by Wilman Sales. How much?
A sum of 95,947.44 had been paid. This was paid on the 18th of July 2024. This was as a result of an assessment at the time, and I suspect, but I certainly won't speak for the Auditor General's office, I suspect that this is the payment that they are positing that there was a benefit. However, these goods, it was to facilitate UHWI obtaining or clearing the shipment, that it was paid on their behalf.
So, who is the principal behind Wilman Sales?
Emily, I think we'll leave it at Wilman Sales Company Limited for now. I think that the Auditor General was kind enough to say Company 3, and we are only too happy here to say Wilman Sales Company Limited.
Yeah, man, no, but you're clearing the air, and especially with, I read in full what the Auditor General wrote, and you're absolutely right, based on what has been written, especially where two people responded and quoted 8.4 million and 8.6. Wilman Sales actually sold the cups and stuff for 6.9.
Sold, not sold.
Not sold, yes. The final cost, when I add up the 1 point something million, the CIF value, plus the 6.9, you're really coming out round about the price that UHWI in-house estimate was for, and you're also coming in perhaps a bit lower than the two companies that responded to the bid. So I think it important to clear the air and put the name of the beneficial owner of this company out there, especially because the public is asking for that.
Right. So I don't have instructions. That's not something I had instructions on. We are quite happy to share that we are Company 3 Willman shares, and in light of the fact that we firmly believe that we didn't benefit. But But I certainly will get those instructions, and I will let you know as soon as
Yes.
I have those in hand.
All right. Let me ask you before you go then. It's interesting to me sitting in this space talking to you as a former contractor general, but not only as a former contractor general, in the formative years of the Integrity Commission, you perhaps walked the halls of the Integrity Commission's physical building with the Auditor General, whose conclusions have now come out adverse to a company that you now represent as an attorney, but you've said at least twice in this interview that you find portions relating to Wilman Sales to be quite unfortunate, and that you were not even afforded a chance, Wilman Sales that is, to be questioned, to provide any responses to the Auditor General when this particular investigation was being undertaken. Tell us, how do we read that, and what is the former contractor general saying to us about the quality of the work of the Auditor General around this particular company, Wilman Sales, as it probed practices at UHWI?
I don't know if this is the Arsenal or Manchester United or any other team approach, but the work of the Auditor General is par excellence, so let me start by saying that. But I, with respect, just have some concerns with the characterizations, and I believe that with the representation that is being made presently through the investigative bodies, we hope that there would be some consideration for a review of the characterization. That's the best way I can say it as an opening batsman to your beamer that you just released from 17 yards.
Yeah, well, Arsenal doesn't play cricket, you know. Neither does Man U. That's actually a nice kick from the half line. So you intend to write to the Auditor General for reconsideration of some aspects of this?
Those are my instructions.
Right. Has there been any adverse impact on the company since the name has been made public?
Yes, concerns, because persons have been wondering what is the nature of the involvement, and my clients have received a number of calls because they, as I started by saying, social media and mainstream media have pumped repeatedly the notion of benefit, the notion of misuse of tax exempt status, and certainly it is unfortunate, and I, on behalf of my clients, would have preferred if consultation had taken place, because certainly some of these questions and some of these suggestions that are made that documents are missing, we certainly could assist them with the documentation that they have cause or concern about.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Dirk Harrison. All the
Thank
best
you very
to you.
much.
Thank you for talking with us exclusively. I don't think I've heard you anywhere else. So thank you.
No, and you won't after this either.
Boy, and you're not an Arsenal supporter, so
No.
no curry flavor.
That's
All
it,
right, all right. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Dirk Harrison is an attorney at law, now in private practice, former prosecutor, but more importantly, former contractor general. Oh. Okay. Let's take a break, and apologies for keeping company with the Companies Office of Jamaica. They were not able to make it today, but we were keeping company with Wilman Sales Company Limited. Let's go to a break.